Good evening to all of you faithful viewers of Equinoxe Television. It's 6 p.m. in Douala. It's time for the news in the English language. Thank you so much for joining us. Our major stories tonight. Over 1,000 Nigerian business persons in Douala today closed their shops located at Kamyabasi. The merchants are decrying what they term excessive taxes demanded from them by certain officials. They want the situation to be regularized before they can get back to business. We'll be telling you more in this edition of the news. And some victims of the Mobile Guinness mudslide are still in agony. A young man who survived the incident says he is bedridden in hospital and has been abandoned by local authorities, adding that he lost his pregnant wife and niece during the Mobile Guinness mudslide. Viewers, those are our major stories. Stay with us for details. Viewers, thank you so much for always being with us. On the news in the English language on Equinoxe Television, I am Anna Bilaleke, and now we just told you in the headlines that over 1,000 shops have been shut down at Kamyabasi as business operators demand the liberation of freedom of one trader who was arrested on Thursday. The business operators at Kamyabasi are accusing some agents of the delegation of commerce for extorting money from them without giving them a receipt. Smart Njikan Gabriel was at Kamyabasi today. He now tells us more.
Business operators at the Kamyabasi neighborhood in the Douala 2 subdivision are angry due to their disappointment. All stores were shut down this Friday in solidarity with a colleague who was beaten and locked up by security officers who came down to the field with elements of the delegation of commerce. The business operators blame agents from the delegation of commerce to be at the origin of their problem.
Every time they collect us money, more than 500 million every year, and who is collecting that money is the delegate, and we don't know where all this money is going. But when the government come to choose us like the partenaire fiscal intégré by 2021, they tell us that they have made a reform where all the government money will go back to the government's account. And we inform the Bureau of Commerce that they should show us their own account so that we should be paying the penalty of Promose. They refuse.
The regional delegate of commerce refutes the allegation by the traders.
Depuis 2021,
since 2021, this, our sister community, haven't paid a dime to the regional delegation of commerce. The regional delegation is having a collection unit, and each trader comes there to pay the amount he or she has been taxed to pay. But the method they are imposing on us to do is not in line with our jurisdiction. We are not a collection office.
Nous ne sommes pas une structure de collecte d'argent.
According to the president of the Traders Union in Kamyabasi, every trader is up to date with their contributions to government coffers.
If government will listen to us and create us even an account where we will pay the penalty that concerns commerce, who should be justified penalty, we will be happy and then make our business peacefully.
The sit-down strike by the traders at the Kamyabasi market was an opportunity for the regional delegate of commerce to reiterate that the law put down by the government must be respected by all in Cameroon.
La loi.
The law on commercial activity states that all importers of vehicles and spare parts get a special authorization from the Minister of Commerce. The only problem is because we are now imposing the law. Our sister nation has to abide to the law of the country that is hosting them. The traders at Kamyabasi say that until their colleague, whom they believed was arbitrary and detained, is released, shops will continue to be on lockdown.
And now let's come back to the suspicious or controversial death of the Vice Consul of the French Consulate here in the economic capital Douala. A suspect has been arrested in connection to the death of the French Vice Consul in Douala, Christian André Marie Houet. The suspect is said to be a lady And after his death, the consulate suspended the issuance of visas for some time. And we also got reports that activities have equally resumed at the French consulate, as Immaculate Fogwith, our source in the report, comes up next.
Suspect is currently being interrogated at the State Defense Secretariat. Investigations jointly carried out by the Littoral Judicial Police, the National Gendarmerie and security elements of the French Embassy was launched after the death of the French Vice Consul in Douala, Christian André Marie Houé. The diplomat was discovered hanging on a rope in his commando residence on Friday, August 18. It is alleged Christian Houé had been blackmailed for several weeks by an unknown individual. The individual had been persuading him to issue several entry visas to France. While investigations are still ongoing, activities have resumed at the French Consulate General. The French flag, which was at half-mast, is now placed at full-mast. All attempts made by Equinoxe TV to get a reaction of those working at the Consulate General were all in vain. Christian André Marie Houé has been in Cameroon since 2021.
And now we take you to the southwest region, precisely in the seaside resort town of Limbe, where as the rainy season continues or intensifies, floods seem to be a nightmare to the local inhabitants of Limbe, and those who are in risk zones have been told to quit the area. Let's now have more with our southwest-based correspondent, Davidson Maimo.
For more than 20 years, some neighborhoods in the seaside resort city of Limbe were marked as risk zones. Yet, the implementation of the decision has been a serious issue.
If you don't respect the laws, you kill, people will lose their lives. So there's no debate, nothing. Once they say it's a risk zone, it's a risk zone.
The 2023 torrential rains that have battered the seaside resort city of Limbe, leading to the death of 4 people and others injured as a result of landslides, not leaving out the destruction of properties worth millions of safe France by flood, have come to expose some of the lapses and laxity displayed by the former Limbe City Council administration to prohibit Limbe denizens from building within the risk zone areas.
People have gone and built there. Then they are having landslides and they are dying and we are shouting. Why are we shouting? The thing is to get all those people away from those areas.
The new Limbe City administration, headed by the city mayor, Paul Efomangale, has firmly reaffirmed the need for those living within the risk zone areas to evacuate as part of measures to prevent future calamities.
They have to leave the risk zone for safer places because those places are places that bring calamity in our community.
The decision has been received by the populace with mixed feelings.
We don't have a place to go until the government will allocate another new place for us before we can leave. If there's no other place to stay, I don't think it will be easy for them to leave.
Nonetheless, the beneficiaries say the items are a great relief to their present predicament. However, sources say local authorities in Limbe are very tactful and cautious in handling the issue of evacuating those living within the risk zone areas.
From the floods in Limbe, we move over to Bamenda to talk security or insecurity. The governor of the Northwest, Adolphe Lele-Lafrique, has said the security situation in the Northwest region is said to be improving somehow. He was speaking at a security meeting. His remarks comes at a time many are expecting an end to the violence as a result of the armed conflict in the two English-speaking regions of the country. Let's now have more with our Northwest regional correspondent Stella Mbu.
The physical reminder of the killings in the Northwest region might have disappeared from the spots where people have been killed and dumped, but the trauma is what families have been forced to live with as many more people continue to die as a result of the armed conflict. According to education stakeholders, the educational sector has been the hardest hit. During the 2022-2023 academic year in the secondary education sector, a total of 110 afflictions were recorded, while 75,000 students are still unaccounted for, even as the Northwest region scored better in official examinations.
Had an alarming number of students and teachers were kidnapped, brutalized. An alarming number. The number had been going down, but this year the number has risen a bit. It's quite disturbing. So the next challenge again, as I said, was the fact that we will not be able to recover all the kids, and it's not giving us sleep. It's not giving us rest. It defeats my purpose as a teacher. I'm a teacher because they're children, and when all the kids are not on board, I cannot be satisfied.
The security threat posed by the armed conflict has been top on the agenda as administrative and security authorities of the region fine-tune strategies in achieving a hitch-free back to school and a return to normal life across the Northwest region.
We are still facing, despite the global calm, act of high banditry. In this regard, special operations have been successfully conducted in some localities, which resulted, as a matter of fact, in the neutralization of numerous renowned terrorists and also the dismantling and destruction of several camps.
Even as the strategies are being put in place, the local population are of the opinion that the roads are maintained, garbage cleared from the streets, as these pose a security threat to their health.
And now in education, we talk school or back to school, as the new school here draws closer. Parents in the city of Yaoundé are complaining that the prices of books in the market are far more expensive than what they can actually afford at the moment. Traders on their part say business is very slow, few days to back to school. Mala Glory tells us more.
Most markets in the city of Yaoundé are filled with school items, though traders complain of poor sales. Prizo is a trader at the Mvogbi market. He recounts his challenges faced in selling his products.
La plupart des clients sont ceux qui viennent se renseigner.
Some clients come here only to ask about the prices of books, present their book list and then leave. For now, business is slow. We wonder if school will really resume come September 4th.
On se demande si la rentrée aura effet.
Parents on their part decry the high cost of school items on the market, and because of this, many have either resort to other means or adapt to the situation. 200 pages now cost 450 francs instead of 350 as before.
Le pouvoir d'achat des parents est...
The prices offered to parents in the market are far more than what they can afford.
On essaie de s'adapter.
Some of us will be forced to buy only the few important books. These complaints from parents preparing their children for the school year is as a result of the hike in the prices of goods and services in Cameroon, which has also affected the educational sector.
And now let's talk about the land grabbing issue in Cameroon. Two ministers opposing each other on land acquisition matters. Both of them, the Minister for Land Tenure and the Minister Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic, have issued contradictory instructions on the management of private state lands in the country. Babila Jonathan has more in the report which comes up
Two
next.
administrative documents signed by two government authorities expressing opposing stance on the same issue. The one signed by Cameroon's Minister of State Properties, Surveys and Land Tenure, and addressed to the Wuri Divisional Delegate of his ministry, grants authorization for the sale of a portion of private state land to an individual in Douala. In response to the request of Ndanga Dugwa, the minister recommends the identification of a free plot within private state land in Bonanjo and Bonaprizo under the supervision of the senior divisional officer of the Wuri division in view of private acquisition by the aforementioned individual. He says this should be done within the framework of the law governing such transactions on state land. On a similar issue, the Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic of Cameroon reiterates instructions of the head of state prohibiting the sale of portions of private state land by administrative authorities to private individuals all over the national territory. In a very urgent letter to the Minister of State Properties, Surveys and Land Tenure, the Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic demands details on land titles number 0032, 0045, 02670 and 02700 in the Fako Division, Southwest region of Cameroon. He has also instructed the minister to give him precisions on the effective exploitation of the different portions of land concerned and portions not yet sold for onward transmission to the head of state.
And now, still talking about lands in Cameroon, stretching from the semi-arid Sahelian zones in the north to the famed grass fields and cocoa forests of the west, and from the extensive tropical rainforest in the south and east to the offshore oil reserves, Cameroon has a diverse, varied landscape. However, the tenure types and exploitation rights are not always mastered by most Cameroonians. The formal law in Cameroon recognizes private land, public and national land. A reporter for me, Armstrong Sander, now tells us more about the various lands and how they can be acquired legally.
Cameroon's formal law classifies land into three major categories: private land, public or national land. Barrister Magloire says private land can be owned by individuals and corporate entities, groups or the state. In order to be deemed private, the land must be titled and registered, he says. Public lands, notably highways, parks and waterways, include land held by the state for the benefit of the people of Cameroon. Away from these two, all the other land is classified as national land, forming category 3. On the mode of acquisition, Judge Sirac talks of direct and indirect acquisition. The formal law recognizes three tenure types, notably ownership, usufruct rights, and leaseholds. Regarding ownership, landowners have the rights to exclusive possession and use of their land, the rights to mortgage the land, and the rights to transfer the land. All ownership rights in land must be registered. Most land privately owned, registered land is in urban areas of Cameroon. As concerns usufruct, the state can grant usufruct rights to occupants of national land. Communities that have not registered their land are generally considered to have usufruct rights from the state of Cameroon. In the last category, the leaseholds. Leaseholds can be granted by private parties or the state under terms agreed by the parties. In urban and peri-urban areas, leasing is common. In some agricultural areas with limited land, rental arrangements are common.
And now, viewers, onto one of our major lead stories. Weeks after the Mobile Guinness mudslides, which took away the lives of at least 40 persons, survivors are complaining that government's promises to assist them have never come to fruition or be fulfilled. Our reporter Lucy Liengu Esia was at the Lakensini Hospital today, where some family members gathered for the corpse removal of their pregnant sister and their niece.
Survivors of the Mobile Guinness collapse building incident complain of being abandoned by the state. The victims, who had been promised aid by the government, say they are yet to receive a dime. According to them, all expenses at the hospital are being paid by them. Are about 20 survivors. We are about 20 of us who survived, and about 100 people died. We haven't received any promise or any assistance from the government. He says surviving from the incident, he was taken to the Daido District Hospital. While there, he didn't receive any assistance from the state. His family decided to take him to a DEA for treatment. Some of them who have their family members at the Lakentini Hospital say they have unpaid bills. At the time, we have about 260,000 francs unpaid bills, but it is not finished because our patient is still very sick. We are frustrated. We don't know what to do. They equally complain that most of their belongings, like bags containing valuable documents, are in the keeping of security forces of the Dongbo Gendarmerie Brigade. He adds that the only thing they could recover are in the hands of security forces who have refused to let go of them.
La gendarmerie bloque nos effets qu'ils détiennent là-bas.
Victims and families of the Mobile Guinex collapsed building call on the government to fulfill their promises.
And now let's take you out of our national frontiers. We go first to Russia, where Russian authorities have recovered the debris from Wagner leader Evgeny Prigozin's jet, which crashed. That was yesterday, but the biggest piece of the puzzle is still missing, as the Russian authorities are saying. We're expecting to have those images on our screen. Russian leader Vladimir Putin, his Kremlin spokesman, and Wagner's social media accounts have all referred to Prigozhin in the past tense. Still, Russian officials have only gone as far as saying that an investigation into the plane crash is on the way and that it will take time. There appears to be a mounting consensus that Prigozhin has died across Russia. People have been paying their respects to him, bringing flowers to improvised memorials, and in one case, as a reference, they referred to the brutal killing of an alleged defector from Wagner. Social media accounts linked to the military group have been posting his obituaries as well, that is, in Russia. And now let's listen to an American-based lawyer, Barrister Akufo. He comes back to how the death of Prigozhin can affect Russia's military relationship with Africa. Let's listen to him in this excerpt.
What has his death got to do with Africa? The only reason we know Prigozhin is because, when he formed the Wagner military group, it's a mercenary group in 2014 aimed at toppling governments. It was in direct response to, the covert operations that the Kremlin wanted to do, but without its fingerprint on it. So Yevgeny Prigozhin was the real person to do it. So with the formation of Wagner, we see them in Central Africa, we see them in Burkina Faso, we see them in Mali, and most likely maybe in Niger. We see them in Venezuela, we see them with Hafez Assad in Syria. They are very, very wealthy because when they come to these places, they cut a deal and they just weave lots of diamonds and gold from these countries in order to supply them with security agreements. But again, what security agreements are they providing? Which was not exactly the same thing that the neo-colonialists and imperialists were providing also, because the only reason why Mr. Prigozhin was in Central Africa or in Mali or Burkina Faso is just because, these places were flooded with lots of military cooperative agreements with francs, and which have come to really put the people in destitution. Not that we want military dictatorships, because it's another form of oppression. The military has never been a solution to governance. They are a solution to fight foreign adversaries, but they are not people to weaving authority over people, because theirs is just brute force. It is not a democratically alleged people that can actually champion, the freedom and the individual liberties that we all aspire for. So the impact on Russian-African military cooperation, I think Russia will still go ahead with its military cooperation with Africa without Mr. Prigozhin, whether through Wagner or any other pseudo organization under the Kremlin's umbrella. We just have to wait and see that. But again, Africa should not be the testing ground for all these military pacts, these security agreements signed whether by France or other Western countries just to protect their turf and interest in Africa. Because when this coup happened in Niger, 2 days after that, or a day after that, the French National Security Council, their defense council met. And a day after that, Moussa Traoré and Mr. Tinubu, President Tinubu, they were all talking about a military intervention now in Niger in support of Mr. Bazoum, who was like a mouthpiece, the best person for the West, but not for Africa, not for its people. So the one thing that ECOWAS should not do is they should not lead a war into Niger, because you are just bidding what the West cannot do. because they want to use you as indirect partners in order to to subsidize what they could not really do directly in Africa. If you can take the cue from Libya, what NATO did in Libya, it was a disaster. It's a disaster till today.
And still out of Cameroon, Gabon's president is seeking a third term in elections this weekend that could extend his family's 55-year political reign. And over to Zimbabwe, the population is anxiously waiting for the outcome of general elections that took place earlier this week. Lucy Liengu Asia has a foreign page roundup.
In Gabon, Interior Minister Limbe Mata has announced on August 24, 2023, the closure of land and sea borders from Friday 25th and Saturday 26th at midnight. The decision, according to the minister, is to protect the peace and stability of the country amidst presidential elections. The general elections in Gabon will take place on Saturday, August 26, 2023, with over 846,000 voters eligible for the presidential elections, legislative and local elections. Drinking spots will also be closed this Friday evening as from 10 p.m. until Saturday midnight. Limbe Mata also said he regretted the deterioration of the political and social climate in the country. The minister called on politicians to act in favor of appeasement. It is worth noting that Gabon's President Ali Bongo will be facing 18 competitors this Friday. He will also be standing for a third term in office as President of Gabon. In Zimbabwe, Zimbabweans waited anxiously this Friday for the outcome of general elections as dozens of armed police with water cannons guarded the National Resource Center, the scene of deadly violence after the previous vote 5 years ago. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission said it was still verifying results from close to 12,500 polling stations across the country and could start releasing details on Friday. Results in the presidential balloting are not expected for several days. Zimbabwe's long history of disputed elections has left many worried of official results. Voting closed on Thursday after delays in distributing ballot papers in the capital and other urban areas prompted President Emmerson Mnangagwa to extend voting by a day. Many voters slept outside polling stations in urban areas that are opposition strongholds to cast their ballots. The elections body has asked people to be patient and wait for official results.
And sad report by Lucy. Our programs continue. The news in the French language comes up at 8 p.m. with Nadine Yambu, and Equinoxe is live from Yaoundé with Guy Zogo. Enjoy the rest of your weekend in the company of programs on Equinoxe Television. Bye-bye for now.